Let's talk some Oregon recruiting. I know it's freezing cold out west, but the Ducks are heating up on the recruiting trail. Number 5 class in 2025, number 1 recruiting class in 2026, and the Ducks got a lot of important targets still left on that board. So we're going to break it down in this video. I got Justin Hopkins of Scoop Duck, and he's going to take us behind the scenes on some of these big recruiting moves going down at Oregon. But first, Duck fans, do me a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button. We are the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we want Oregon fans to jump on board, so hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in the great Justin Hopkins of Scoop Duck. So we are going to start with the number 1 class in 2026, and the Ducks aren't finished. They're going after the number 1 quarterback, Jared Curtis, out of Nashville. And there's been a bit of news. He dropped a top 6. Oregon makes the cut. He also dropped his first 3 officials, and Oregon's in that group. So, Justin, where do you think Oregon sits among this top 6 as we head into these important offseason months?
Yeah, that's a great question. Jared has come out and said that Oregon is the team to beat at one point coming off of that decommitment to Georgia, but he's kind of backed away a little bit from that and keeping things open. I think the Ducks are probably at least in the top 2. It seems like they're a team that he talks about very frequently and mentions relationships specifically with Coach Stein and Coach Lanning. So I think the Ducks are in great shape as he kind of enters this visit stretch. But there's one thing that gives me some pause, if you will, and it's a fact that you can look at that list and only one of those schools is an outlier, and it's Oregon, because otherwise everybody else is east of Texas. So that's one thing as this progresses and as we see it get into, the waning hours and decision time in June or July or whatever, it'll be interesting to see if he does indeed, that far from home.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think he's a couple months from a decision. I don't think he's going to make a decision in June. I think he might make a decision in July, but I think more likely we're looking at August, September at the earliest for Jared Curtis. So right now, though, I'm sure fans watching this channel saw me and Steve talk yesterday. Steve thinks Georgia is the leader right now. I kind of give the edge to Oregon. We're just talking way too early projections for Curtis. So that being said, who else would you consider? What other quarterbacks right now are at the top of Oregon's board? Inside Scoop listeners, let's talk Prize Picks. And here's what I want to do. I want to give you $50. How's that going to happen? Well, if you play $5 in lineups, after that play, whether you win or lose, you're going to have $50 in your account. All you have to do is play $5 in lineups. All right. So this week with the NFL playoffs coming, I am thinking about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes on the more than passing yards, but also like Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. What are you guys playing this weekend with the NFL playoffs coming? Now, Prize Picks. We love Prize Picks because of the easy withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That is what makes Prize Picks the number 1 daily fantasy sports app. So here's what we're going to do to get that 50. Go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. Promo code inside scoop to receive a guaranteed 50 once you play $5 in lineups. That's Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Well, Oregon's in an interesting spot in this cycle. Obviously, Jaron Kiava-Sagapolutele made the late decision to go to Oregon, but then to go to Cal. So I think that opened things up in 26. Obviously, they've got Jonas Williams already committed. So they'd already have a 4-star quarterback in this class. But, we just talked about Jared and Oregon's top 2 or at worst top 3 there. But probably among the top 2 for Ryder Lyons out west. And so that's another quarterback that the Ducks are heavily pursuing. Dan Lanning and Will Stein also just visited him at Folsom this week during the coaches making the rounds. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I could conceivably see a world, hear me out, that Oregon ends up with 3 quarterbacks in this class. Now, obviously, that's going to be really difficult to do. But the reason that could happen is because Ryder Lyons is going to take his mission out of high school. So even though he would be in the 26 class, he really wouldn't be a 26 quarterback, as whether he takes a 1 year, 1.5 year, or 2 year mission, that would put some spacing there. So if the Ducks ended up with 3 quarterbacks, that's how they do it. I know that's going to be really tough, but I'm never going to count Dan Lanning out from pulling off a stunner.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense with Ryder Lyons, like you said. His recruitment's a little unorthodox here. So we will keep an eye on the quarterback board as things heat up. Speaking of heating up, number one wide receiver Chris Henry Jr., he's committed to Ohio State, but we saw a report from Wilt Fong over the weekend that he's still in contact with Oregon. So, Justin, what's the strategy here? What should Duck fans expect? Is this a long-term play? Are the Ducks on the outside looking in? What do you think about Chris Henry Jr.?
Well, I think Ohio State just won a national championship, so you want to let that get a little bit removed from that recruitment. So kudos to them. And Ohio State's obviously done everything right there. They've got Brian Hartline, who we know recruits absolute animals at the wideout position, whether it's Jeremiah Smith or guys before him. So for Oregon, this is the long game, right? It's one of those things where he's now more so in your footprint than he is in Ohio State's because he's at Mater Dei in California. Just get him on campus. Get him on campus as frequently as you can. Continue to build those relationships. Continue to just really kind of establish yourself. And it feels like this is, Oregon's really the only threat right now. I could see Chris Henry maybe taking a few other visits, but he's really kind of only openly talking about Oregon and Ohio State.
Right.
So, yeah, if I'm Dan Lanning, I just keep trying to get him on campus and kind of keep chopping wood, if you will, little by little, and see if you can maybe make a play later this fall or even after that.
It sounds like a big football game. It's like, hey, we just want to be there in the fourth quarter where he's still talking to us and we have a chance to score at the end and win. But, I get it. Chris Henry Jr., he's going to be a tough pull. And like you said, you got to wait till some of the emotion of this national championship wears off and all that. But probably a long-term play. Speaking of Chris Henry, he's at Mater Dei High School in California, and we know Oregon really likes to raid California for the best player. So, speaking of 2026, who's some of the most important Cali targets for Oregon?
Yeah, as we know, Oregon loves to go set up shop in California, although I will give Lincoln Riley credit. He's getting a little pushback and making an effort this cycle. So hopefully he's kind of figured that thing out. But, Oregon recruits nationally, but no state's more important than California for the Ducks.
Yeah.
There's a really good group of recruits this year in California. Just a few off the top of my head. Tommy Tofi, just talking about Mater Dei, is there, and an offensive lineman, which we know Oregon's going to prioritize. Four-star linebacker Talanoa Ely, one of the top linebackers in the country. Oregon is expected to get him on campus this weekend for their big junior day. Brandon Arrington is a five-star athlete down in California that the Ducks, along with every other program in the country, are after. Davin Benjamin, RJ Sermons, Brandon Lockhart. Those are three defensive backs in the state of California the Ducks are after. Lockhart and Sermons both committed to USC currently. And then last, I'll throw out tight end Israel Briggs. I know that's another position Oregon needs. He's expected to visit as well for this junior day for Oregon. So the Ducks are certainly got a nice list going of targets in California, and already got a couple of California commits headlined by Cody Green once again at Mater Dei. We keep talking about Mater Dei. They just have so many dang good players.
Doesn't go away. So, Duck fans, talk to Justin and I. How are you guys feeling about number one quarterback Jared Curtis? And what do you think Oregon needs to do to lock down that number one class in 2026? Talk to us. Comment section below.